Changing organizational culture. In this presentation, we are going to learn the concept of change in organizations. After going through this presentation, you should be able to identify the forces of change, identify the sources of resistance to change, know how resistance can be managed, discuss the models to manage organizational change. Organizational change refers to a modification or transformation of the organization's structure, processes, or goods. Change in organizations has become a need due to several reasons. We will discuss a few of them. The world has become a global marketplace and competition has increased. To tackle this competition, organizations need to change. Growing effect of political, social, cultural, natural, and economic environment on business has compelled the organizations to change. To deal with the growing demand and changing lifestyles of customers, organizations need to change. Increasing importance of professionals and increasing use of technology have also been influential in bringing about a change in organizations. These issues also highlight the importance of change in organizations. Managers face a lot of problems while implementing changes in organizational culture. Organizational culture can be changed either by changing the behavior of the employees or changing the visible artifacts. Behavior can be changed in two ways: behavior addition and behavior substitution. When managers make other employees execute new behavior that is central to new culture in addition to existing behaviors, it is called behavior addition. When the managers make other employees execute new behavior in place of old behaviors that were central to old culture, it is called behavior substitution. Another way to change culture is to change all the visible artifacts of old culture, like design, layout, dress code, HR policies, etc. However, there is no guarantee that changing behaviors or visible artifacts will bring about a change in culture. Pressures for change are created both inside and outside the organization. We will discuss the external forces first. Rapid technological innovation is a major force for change in organizations, and those who fail to keep pace can quickly fall behind. Globalization has compelled the organizations to change. It means rethinking the most efficient ways to use resources, disseminate and gather information, and develop people. An organizational change can also be initiated by environmental pressures, such as social and political changes. Workforce diversity is a result of globalization. Workforce diversity is a powerful force for change in organizations. The need to manage ethical behavior and corporate responsibilities has brought about several changes in organizations. Now, we will discuss the internal forces. Changes in the managerial personnel, especially in top management, put a constant pressure for change in the organization. An organization that experiences losses and thereby ineffectiveness in practices is undoubtedly motivated to change the current situation. Organizational climate can also stimulate change. If the employees are lethargic, unmotivated, and dissatisfied, a change is definitely needed. Drawback in policies and procedure of the organization is another internal force that might initiate an organizational change. Similarly, any crisis like strikes, lockouts, and walkouts might also lead to a change in organization. Finally, changes in employee expectations also can trigger change in organizations. All these forces necessitate change in the organization. There are two basic forms of change in organizations: planned change and unplanned change. Planned change is an intentional change and results from a deliberate decision to alter the organization, like change in policies, design, and layout. Unplanned change is unforeseen and is often imposed on the organization. For instance, When government changes the foreign trade norms, the organizations might well have to change their foreign trade procedures. Change agents are the individuals or group that undertakes the task of introducing and managing a change in an organization. There are internal and external change agents. Internal change agents can be the managers or employees of the organization. They have a good knowledge about the values of the organization, but they may be accused of favoritism. External change agents can be the consultants and experts. They are more likely to be impartial, but they lack deep knowledge about the history and practices of the organization. As stated earlier also, change is not easy to implement. It faces a lot of resistance. People often resist change in a rational response based on self-interest. The sources of resistance to change can be categorized into two sources: individual and organizational. We will discuss the individual sources first. Factors like fear of technological unemployment, job loss, reduced wages, change in job tasks, etc. may compel employees to resist change. As change is uncertain and unknown, people also fear losing their status or positive job qualities if the change is implemented. A change is most likely to bring about the change in organizational practices and job roles, and this would break the habit of employees. They may not want to leave a role to which they are well adjusted to. Some employees might want the change to take place but might resist because of group pressure. People fear that change will threaten meaningful interpersonal relationship on the job. People fight social displacement by resisting change. Now we will discuss the organizational sources of resistance. The necessary financial, material, and human resources may not be available to the organization to make the required changes. Some organizational structures have inbuilt mechanism for resistance to change. Some organizations invest a huge amount of capital in fixed assets. If an organization wishes to introduce change, then difficulty arises because of these sunk costs. Individuals or groups who hold power under the current arrangement may be threatened with losing these political advantages in the advent of change. Change in organizational pattern may threaten the expertise of specialized groups. Therefore, specialists usually resist change. Even if individuals want to change their behavior, group norms may act as a constraint. Resistance to change is a common thing in organizations, but not all changes are resisted, and those that are resisted should be managed well. We will now discuss some tactics to deal with resistance to change effectively. Communication about impending change is essential if employees are to adjust effectively. Educating employees on new work procedures is often helpful. Organizations should allow employees to be a part of the change. When employees are allowed to participate, they are more committed to change. Another strategy for managing resistance is providing empathy and support to employees who have trouble dealing with the change. Another way to deal with potential resistance to change is to negotiate with the employees who resist change. This tactic is useful especially when resistance comes from a powerful source. Manipulation refers to covert influence attempts. It involves giving individuals a desirable role in design or implementation of change. Coercion is the application of direct threats or force on the resistors. Coercion is mostly applied where speed is essential in implementing change and the change initiator possesses considerable power. As per H. Woodward and S. Bisholz, employees in the organization show four basic identifiable reactions to change: disengagement, disidentification, disenchantment, and disorientation. Disengagement is psychological withdrawal from change. Disengaged employees lack drive and commitment. Disidentification is a situation in which employees feel that their identity has been threatened by change. and they feel very vulnerable. Disenchantment is usually expressed in the form of anger. Disenchanted employees may try to enlist the support of other employees by forming coalitions. Disoriented employees are lost and confused, and often they are unsure of their feelings. Now let us see how much you have understood till now. State whether the following statements are true or false. Change in work climate is an external force of change. True or false? False. Increase in prices due to inflation is a planned change. True or false? False. Organizations resist change also because of sunk costs involved. True or false? True. Disoriented employees are lost and confused. True or false? True. Now we will discuss the models that can be used to manage change. We will discuss three models: Lewin's change model, Nadler's organizational model, and the contingency model of analyzing change. First, we will discuss the Lewin's model. Kurt Lewin proposed a three-stage theory of change commonly referred to as unfreeze, change, freeze or refreeze. First, unfreezing stage involves moving ourselves or a department or an entire business towards motivation for change. The second stage occurs as we make the changes that are needed. This stage is often the hardest as people are unsure or even fearful. Refreezing stage is about establishing stability once the changes have been made. The changes are accepted and become the new norm. People form new relationships and become comfortable with their routines. This can take time. Field analysis is a useful way to understand this process and gives plenty of ideas of how this can be done. Lewin's method proposes that two sets of forces operate in any system: forces that operate for change, or the driving forces, and the forces that operate against change, or the resisting forces. If the two sets of forces are equal in strength, then the system will be in equilibrium. Now we will discuss the Nadler's model. In this model of the transformation process, the organization is composed of four components or subsystems, which are all dependent on each other. These are the work. This is the actual day-to-day activity carried out by individuals. The people. This is about the skills and characteristics of people who work in an organization. The formal organization. This refers to the structure, systems, and policies in place. The informal organization. This consists of all the unplanned, unwritten activities that emerge over time, such as power, influence, values, and norms. When a lack of congruence occurs, energy builds in the system in the form of resistance, control, and power. Resistance comes from a fear of the unknown or a need for things to remain stable. Control issues result from normal structures and processes being in the flux. Power problems arise when there is a threat that power might be taken away from any currently powerful group or individual. Awareness of these problem areas enables managers to prepare themselves to implement change successfully. Finally, we will discuss the contingency model given by Cotter and Schlesinger. They gave some proposals that are depicted in the table given on the slide. Each approach has its advantages and disadvantages, and hence they are appropriate in certain situations only. Now we will discuss Theory Z, given by William Auchi in brief. In Theory Z, Auchi describes the art of Japanese management and shows how it can be adapted to American companies. Theory Z shows step by step how the transition works. Professor Auchi's new theory of management promises to change the way managers and employees think about their jobs, their companies, and their working lives. Let's go through the main points of this presentation. Changing organizational culture takes patience, vigilance, and a focus on changing the parts of an organizational culture that managers can control. Change is caused by both external and internal forces in organizations. The major problem faced while implementing change is resistance, and it has to be dealt with effectively. Three major models to manage organizational change are Levin's change model, Nadler's organizational model, and contingency model.